You know what people will always remember? They remember that guy, the one who spoke up when everyone else stayed quiet, the one who leaned in when others pulled back, the one who didn't wait to be chosen, but chose himself. And here's the truth. Every single one of us has the chance to be that guy. The guy who takes the shot, who makes the call, who sets the tone in the room. But most people, they hesitate, they hold back, they wait for permission that's never coming. And in doing that, they let their moment slip away. The truth about life, the uncomfortable, undeniable truth, is that most people will go their entire lives blending into the background. They'll play it safe, follow the rules, do just enough to get by, and hope that by keeping their head down, life will somehow reward them. But let me ask you something. Can you remember the name of the kid in school who never spoke up, never raised their hand, never dared to stand out? Probably not. But I bet you remember the one who did. The one who was brave enough to voice an opinion, bold enough to make a move, crazy enough to try something new. That's the person who sticks in your memory. Why? Because the world doesn't remember those who hide. The world remembers those who step up. Think about it. Every story we celebrate, every person we look at with admiration, they all have one thing in common. They made a choice to step into the spotlight, even when it wasn't comfortable. They weren't born with some magical talent or superpower that the rest of us lack. What separated them was a decision to stand when it was easier to sit, to speak when silence felt safer, to act when waiting would have been the easier option. The human brain is wired to notice what's different. We are drawn to contrast. We remember the person who stands tall in a room full of people slouched over their phones. We remember the one who volunteers when everyone else looks at the floor. We remember the one who makes the move, who takes the chance, who does the thing that most people are too scared to do. That's why blending in never builds legacy. It makes you forgettable. It keeps you invisible. And here's where most people get it wrong. They think stepping up means being the loudest voice in the room or having all the answers. That's not it. Stepping up is about courage, not volume. It's about choosing action over hesitation. You don't need to know everything. You just need to be willing to try. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to show up when it counts. And that right there is what makes people unforgettable. Let me give you an example. Picture two people at work. There's a big project. The team hits a roadblock, and suddenly everyone is stuck. One person sits back waiting for instructions, thinking, well, someone else will figure this out. The other person, even if they don't have the perfect solution, raises their hand and says, what if we try this? I'll take the first crack at it. Which one do you think gets remembered? Which one do you think earns respect? Which one do you think people start looking to as a leader? It's obvious, isn't it? The one who stepped up. That same pattern shows up everywhere in life. The people who make history, who create movements, who build empires. They were ordinary individuals who refused to blend in. They weren't content with being another face in the crowd. They had the courage to claim their space in the world. And the beautiful part is that courage is not reserved for a chosen few. It's available to you, to me, to anyone who decides they're done being invisible. But let's be real, it's scary. Stepping up is uncomfortable because it puts you at risk. You might fail, you might look foolish. People might judge you. But here's the catch. Those fears are temporary. The embarrassment of stumbling, the sting of rejection, the whispers of criticism, they fade. What doesn't fade is the regret of staying silent when you should have spoken. The regret of staying seated when you should have stood. The regret of blending in when deep down you knew you were meant to stand out. Life is short. You don't get endless chances. The opportunities you pass by today may never come back. And every time you choose to shrink, to hide, to blend, you're teaching yourself that your voice, your presence, your contribution doesn't matter. That's not the truth, but that's the story you're living. And if you live that story long enough, it becomes your reality. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine if, starting today, you decided that whenever you felt the urge to pull back, you would lean forward. Imagine if every time fear told you to blend in, you did the exact opposite and stepped up. Do you know what would happen? People would start noticing you. They'd start remembering your name. They'd start associating you with courage, initiative, and leadership. And before you know it, you'd transform from someone forgettable into someone unforgettable. This is the power of stepping up. It creates moments that last. It builds trust. It commands respect. And it plants seeds of legacy. And the best part, you don't have to wait for some big life-changing opportunity. You can practice it every single day. Speak up in a meeting. Ask the question that's on your mind. Offer to help when no one else does. Take the first step on a project. Be the one who raises their hand. Because those small decisions, they add up. They train your brain to choose action over hesitation. And over time, that becomes who you are, the person people remember. So yes, the world remembers those who step up. But here's the real question. When the moment comes, will it remember you? When people hear the phrase, be that guy, a lot of them get it twisted. They think it means being the loudest person in the room, the one who dominates conversations, flexes their ego, and makes everything about themselves. That's not what this is about. Being that guy has nothing to do with arrogance. It's not about pretending you're better than everyone else. It's about one thing: action. Arrogance is easy. Anybody can puff up their chest, talk big, and try to look important. But action, that's rare. Action is what separates the people who just talk from the people who make an impact. And that's what being that guy really means. It means being the person who gets up when others sit still. The person who makes moves when everyone else is stuck in. Someday, mode. The person who does more than just talk about dreams. They chase them, they live them, they build them. Here's the thing: the world is full of talkers. It's full of people who have ideas, plans, intentions, and excuses. You've heard it before. I'll start next year. I'm waiting for the right moment. One day, when everything lines up, I'll go for it. But one day never comes. And while those people are waiting, there's someone else out there who's already taking action, already moving, already becoming unforgettable. That's the difference. Being that guy isn't about being perfect. It's not about having the best idea or the biggest talent. It's about refusing to stand still. It's about choosing progress over perfection. And when you show up consistently, when you're the one who acts instead of hesitates, people notice. You become the person others look to when they need someone reliable, someone bold, someone willing to take the first step. Let's make this real. Picture a group of friends trying to decide where to eat. Everyone is stuck in that loop. I don't know, what do you want? Until someone finally says, let's just go here. Instantly, the whole group follows. Why? Because people are drawn to decisiveness. People respect action. Even in something as small as choosing a restaurant, being the one to decide shifts the energy. Now scale that up to your career, your relationships, your goals. The one who acts leads the way. The one who waits gets left behind. Arrogance tries to control people. Action inspires them. Arrogance demands respect. Action earns it. Arrogance is all talk. Action is proof. That's why arrogance fades, but action lasts. Because the truth is, people don't follow words. They follow behavior. They follow momentum. They follow results. And yes, taking action is scary. It puts you on the line. It exposes you to failure, rejection, and criticism. But that's exactly why so few people do it. That's exactly why the person who dares to act stands out. Think about it. If everyone played it safe, the world would never move forward. Every invention, every breakthrough, every great achievement came from someone who was willing to look foolish, to risk being wrong, to take action. That's not arrogance. That's courage. Being that guy is about being the one who makes the move even when you're scared. It's about raising your hand in the meeting, even if your voice shakes. It's about starting the business, even if people doubt you. It's about saying yes to the opportunity, even if you don't feel 100% ready. Because here's a secret: no one ever feels fully ready. Everyone feels fear. Everyone feels doubt. The difference is, most people let those feelings stop them. But the one who acts in spite of fear, that's the person who changes their life. And let's talk about the ripple effect of action. When you act, you give other people permission to act too. Your courage becomes contagious. Your move becomes the spark for someone else's fire. People see you stepping out, and suddenly they start to believe maybe they can step out too. That's leadership, not by title, not by authority, but by example. This is why being that guy matters. Because when you're the one who acts, you set a new standard, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. You raise the bar, you shift the energy. You make it okay for others to step up too. And that's how change happens. Not through arrogance, not through talk, but through the unstoppable force of action. Now, I want you to picture your own life. Think about the places where you've been holding back. Maybe it's the idea you've been sitting on. Maybe it's the conversation you know you need to have. Maybe it's the risk you've been avoiding because you're scared of the outcome. Ask yourself this: am I waiting because it's not the right time? Or am I waiting because I'm scared? Because if fear is the only reason you're not acting, then you already know what you need to do. Here's the deal: you don't have to be louder, smarter, richer, or more talented to be that guy. You just have to do the thing most people won't do. You have to act. You have to stop waiting, stop hesitating, stop blending in with the crowd of maybe later. And someday soon, you've got to decide that today is the day you step forward. So the next time you feel that pull, that hesitation, that moment where your gut says, I should do this, but your mind says, maybe not, I want you to remember this: arrogance talks, action transforms. Arrogance fades, action endures. Arrogance is about you, action is about impact. And if you truly want to be remembered, if you want to live a life that matters, you've got to choose action. Every single time. Because being that guy, it's not about who shouts the loudest. It's about who dares to move first. Let's get something straight right now. If you're sitting around waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder to give you a green light, to tell you that you're good enough or ready enough, you're going to be waiting forever. Most people live their lives like this. They wait. They wait for permission. Permission from their boss, from their parents, from society, even from strangers who don't care about them. And in that waiting, they waste years of their lives. But here's the truth: no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to hand you your dream. No one is going to give you permission to live the life you want. Leaders know this. They don't wait for permission. They create it. They don't sit around waiting for opportunities. They make opportunities. And that's what separates the people who live remarkable lives from the people who simply exist. Think about the stories we love. The entrepreneurs, the athletes, the artists, the innovators. None of them were chosen. Nobody sent them an invitation to greatness. They weren't sitting around one day when someone came knocking on the door saying, it's your turn now. No, they decided it was their turn. They created their own permission slip and went after it. Waiting for permission is comfortable. It feels safe. Because when you wait, you get to avoid risk. You get to avoid blame. You get to hide behind the excuse of, well, nobody gave me the chance. But here's the reality. The people you admire didn't wait for chances. They took them. They didn't ask, how am I allowed to? What will it take? And then they moved. I'll give you an example. Imagine two people with the same idea for a business. One spends years researching, overthinking, waiting for a sign, waiting for the market to be perfect, waiting for the right time. The other one, they just start. They launch a small version, they test it, they fail, they learn, they improve, they grow. 10 years later, who do you think is successful? Not the one who waited, because waiting kills momentum. Waiting kills dreams. The person who acted, even imperfect, built something real while the others stayed stuck in someday. That's the cost of waiting for permission. You trade your potential for comfort. You give up your power. You let your future be decided by someone else. And the most dangerous part, you don't even realize it's happening because waiting feels responsible, it feels practical, it feels normal. But normal never created history. Normal never built legacies. Normal is just another word for average. Now, creating your own permission doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean ignoring rules or responsibilities. It means refusing to let fear, doubt, or other people's opinions dictate your next step. It means giving yourself the authority to pursue what matters to you, even when no one else validates it. It's saying, I don't need approval to start. I don't need applause to keep going. I don't need a guarantee to bet on myself. That's leadership. And here's what's powerful. When you create your own permission, you liberate others to do the same. People see you taking action without waiting, and it makes them question why they've been holding back. You set an example. You become proof that it's possible. That's the ripple effect of leadership. It's not about controlling people. It's about inspiring them by what you do. But let's be honest, it's hard. It's hard to act without permission because we've been trained since childhood to seek it. Raise your hand to speak. Wait your turn. Ask before you move. Follow the rules. That conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. So when you decide to create your own permission, it feels rebellious. It feels wrong. It feels like you're breaking some invisible law. And that's why so many people never do it. They confuse obedience with safety. They confuse waiting with being smart. But in reality, waiting is just fear dressed up as caution. Leaders push through that fear. They recognize that fear is normal, but it's not a stop sign. They know that if they wait until everything is perfect, they'll never start. So they move anyway. They figure it out along the way. And every time they do, they reinforce a powerful truth. You don't need someone else's blessing to chase your own vision. So let me ask you, where in your life are you waiting for permission? Is it that career move you've been dreaming about? The book you want to write? The conversation you know you need to have? The risk you've been avoiding because no one has told you? It's okay to take it. Whatever it is, I need you hear this. No one is going to give you that permission slip. You've got to write it yourself. Picture your future self for a second. 10 years from now, looking back on today. Do you want to be the person who said, I was ready, but no one gave me the chance? Or do you want to be the one who said, I didn't wait, I made the chance? That choice, that decision to stop waiting and start creating, is the line between regret and fulfillment. So here's your challenge. Stop asking, am I allowed to? And start asking, what will it take? Stop waiting for the right time, the right approval, the right circumstances. They don't exist. The right time is the moment you decide. The right permission is the one you give yourself. Because at the end of the day, leaders don't wait. Leaders don't ask. Leaders don't blend in. Leaders create their own permission. And in doing so, they carve out a life that no one else could have written for. The world doesn't need more people waiting. The world needs more people leading. And the moment you decide to stop waiting for permission, that's the moment you become one of them. Let's be brutally honest, comfort zones are seductive. They're cozy, predictable, safe. They keep you from failing, from being judged, from facing uncertainty. And that's exactly why they trap you. Comfort zones are where dreams go to die. They don't kill you, they numb you. They lull you into believing you're living, when really you're just existing. Because here's the truth, comfort zones produce average. And average never inspires anyone. Average doesn't get remembered. Average doesn't change the world. Think about the people who left their mark on history. The innovators, the creators, the leaders. None of them achieved greatness by staying comfortable. They were willing to risk failure, rejection, and ridicule in order to chase something bigger. Risk is the price of admission for living a life that matters. Without risk, you get ordinary. With risk, you create unforgettable. Here's why. When you step outside your comfort zone, you enter the space where growth happens. Inside the comfort zone, you already know the outcome. You already know how it feels. You already know you can handle it. But nothing changes there. You're not challenged. You're not stretched. You're not evolving. You're just repeating. But the moment you take a risk, everything shifts. Suddenly, you're vulnerable. You're learning, you're awake. That's where life gets exciting. That's where stories worth telling are born. Let's make this practical. Imagine someone who stays in the same job for 20 years, even though they're unhappy because it feels safe. They never take a risk. They never explore their passion. And yes, they get stability, they get predictability. But do they get fulfillment? Do they get legacy? Do they wake up excited every day? Probably not. Now imagine someone who, despite fear, takes the leap into something new. Maybe they fail at first, maybe it's messy. But through that risk, they discover strength they didn't know they had. They build something meaningful. They create a story that's unforgettable, not just for others, but for themselves. Comfort zones whisper lies. They tell you, stay here, you're safe. Don't take the risk, you might fail. Don't put yourself out there, you might look stupid. But here's the irony, the very thing you fear, failure, rejection, discomfort, is the thing that transforms you. You can't build resilience without setbacks. You can't find courage without fear. You can't achieve greatness without risk. Comfort feels safe in the moment, but it robs you of the future you could have had. Now, I'm not saying you should throw yourself into chaos without thinking. Risk should be intentional, but they don't have to be massive, life-altering leaps. Sometimes the risk is small, but it still pushes you beyond average. Speaking up when your instinct says stay quiet, that's a risk. Trying something new in front of others, that's a risk. Asking for the opportunity you want, even though you might get rejected, that's a risk. And each time you do it, you strengthen that muscle. You expand your capacity for courage. The difference between average and unforgettable lies in how you respond to those moments of choice. Do you choose comfort or do you choose courage? Because every time you choose comfort, you reinforce mediocrity. Every time you choose risk, you unlock potential. And that potential is where the magic happens. Think about your favorite memories. The ones that make you smile, make you laugh, make you proud. Were they born in comfort or were they born in risk? Chances are they came from moments when you did something scary, uncertain, bold. Comfort rarely gives you stories. Risk gives you the stories you'll tell for the rest of your life. And here's the secret. Comfort zones don't stay the same size. They shrink. The longer you stay there, the smaller your world becomes. But when you take risks, your comfort zone expands. What once felt impossible starts to feel normal. The conversation you were terrified of becomes easier. The stage you once feared standing on becomes exciting. The leap you once thought was too big becomes your new baseline. That's how growth works. Risks stretch you, and every stretch makes you stronger. So if you're living in a loop right now, same routine, same choices, same results, ask yourself, am I truly alive or am I just comfortable? Because those aren't the same thing. Living requires risk. Living requires stepping into the unknown. Living requires choosing courage over comfort again and again. The people who leave legacies, who inspire generations, who create unforgettable impact, they didn't play it safe. They bet on themselves. They took risks when no one else would. They said yes when fear screamed no. And in doing so, they proved a timeless truth. It's not comfort that defines you, it's courage. So here's your challenge. Look at the areas in your life where you've been playing small, staying safe, hiding in comfort. And then ask, what risk can I take today? What conversation can I start? What step can I take? What leap have I been avoiding that might just change everything? Don't wait until you're ready. You'll never feel ready. Act now while it still scares you. Because that fear is the sign you're exactly where you need to be. Comfort zones produce average. Risks create unforgettable. And when you look back at your life, you won't remember the days you stayed safe. You'll remember the risks you took that made you come alive. When people talk about legacy, they often imagine it's something far off in the future, something you leave behind when your life is over. But that's not true. Legacy isn't built at the end. Legacy is built in the moments you're living right now. Every decision you make, every action you take, every choice to conform or to stand apart, those are the bricks of your legacy. And here's the key: the legacy you leave is built on the moments when you chose to be different. Think about it. Nobody remembers the person who followed the script word for word, who lived exactly the way they were told, who never asked questions, never took risks, never stood out. But we do remember the ones who dared to break the pattern, the ones who challenged the norms, the ones who didn't just live the way others expected, but carved out a life that reflected who they really were. That's what gets remembered. That's what echoes after you're gone. Being different is uncomfortable. It sets you apart. It exposes you to judgment, criticism, and misunderstanding. But it's also the only way to live a life that matters. Because if you spend your entire existence blending in, doing what everyone else does, then at the end of the road, what will you have left? A copy of someone else's story, a life that could have been lived by anyone. Legacy requires courage, and courage requires difference. Let's get real, most people are terrified of being different. They crave acceptance. They want to fit in, to be liked, to belong. And there's nothing wrong with belonging. We're wired for connection. But when belonging comes at the cost of your individuality, when fitting in means silencing your truth, you lose the chance to create a legacy. You trade your uniqueness for approval, and approval fades. But difference lasts. Think about the leaders and trailblazers who've inspired you. Maybe it's an activist who stood for justice when silence was easier. Maybe it's an entrepreneur who built something the world had never seen before. Maybe it's an artist who created work that didn't fit the mold but touched souls anyway. What did they all have in common? They were different. They chose to stand apart instead of blend in. And because of that, we remember them. Your legacy isn't built in the grand, dramatic moments. It's built in the small, daily choices where you decide to either follow the crowd or step out on your own. It's built when you speak up even though your voice shakes. It's built when you stand for something even when it's unpopular. It's built when you dare to live authentically in a world that constantly pressures you to conform. And here's the powerful part. You don't have to change the world to leave a legacy. You just have to change your world. You just have to live in a way that makes others say, because of them, I'm braver. Because of them, I tried. Because of them, I believed it was possible. That ripple effect, that's legacy. Now, let's talk about the alternative. What happens if you don't choose to be different? What happens if you spend your whole life blending in? You might avoid discomfort. You might avoid rejection. You might even feel safe. But you'll also live small. You'll silence your voice. You'll bury your dreams. And when your time is up, you'll leave behind little more than a footprint in the sand. Something the tide will wash away in seconds. That's not legacy. That's invisibility. So let me ask you, what kind of story do you want to leave behind? When people speak your name years from now, what do you want them to remember? Do you want them to say, they were nice, they blended in, they never rocked the boat? Or do you want them to say, they were bold, they were real, they were unforgettable? The answer comes down to your willingness to be different. And let's be clear, being different doesn't mean being difficult for the sake of it. It's not about rebelling against everything just to prove a point. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way that's true to who you are, even if that truth sets you apart. It's about following your own compass instead of someone else's map. Legacy is not built by following trends. It's built by setting them. Legacy is not built by echoing other people's voices. It's built by using your own. Legacy is not built in comfort, it's built in courage. And courage almost always means choosing to be different. So here's your challenge, start today. Start with one choice. One moment where you decide, I'm not going to blend in. I'm not going to silence myself. I'm not going to settle. Maybe it's pursuing the path that doesn't make sense to others but feels right to you. Maybe it's standing up for someone who has no one else to stand for. Maybe it's finally being honest about what you want. Whatever it is, that choice, that act of difference, plants the seed of your legacy. One day your life will be a story. People will tell it long after you're gone. And the parts they remember, the parts they pass down, the parts that inspire others, those will be the moments when you chose to be different. When you said yes while others said no. When you stood tall while others shrank back. When you lived fully instead of safety. The legacy you leave isn't about the possessions you collect or the titles you earn. It's about the impact you make and the courage you show. And that impact, that courage, that legacy, it all starts with one brave decision, the decision to be different.